Coming up on this week's episode of The Clinch, we're joined by matchmaker Graeme Cartmell to break down some of the action from one of the best EFC main cards I think we've ever witnessed this past weekend here in Johannesburg. So welcome to The Clinch. Well, the first EFC event of the year was a sold-out, action-packed evening that was one of the best in the organisation's history. EFC 57 witnessed a host of incredible battles and turnarounds, with every single fighter putting everything on the line. Joining me to discuss the event is EFC matchmaker Graeme Cartmell. Graeme, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Was that one of the best cards we've ever seen in your organisation's history?
It was pretty spectacular. Best, it's always difficult to describe best because every time we have an event, that's the best.
Yeah.
You know, it keeps on going from strength to strength.
Yeah, it's tough to say because you've been on 8 years now. I think the EFC's been in existence, and every time we talk about one of the best cards ever, it just keeps getting better, which is indicative of the growth of the EFC. Let's talk about the main card then. Danny Henry against Egor Cabeza. That was for a replacement fight. That was incredible.
Great fight. Danny Henry really brought it to Egor. I think that if you look at the fight as a whole, Egor went out there blazing, trying to destroy Danny in the early parts. I don't know whether that was kind of his plan or he didn't have a gas tank. I mean, you know, there's certain things that happened in this camp, leading up to this camp, that, you know, raised those questions. But to be fair, he put on an awesome performance up until Danny weathered the storm and turned it into his game, which is a submission game. And he got the anaconda choke in, managed to choke him out, which, I mean, I was blown away by. I can't believe. I watched the fight and I thought, is it in?
I didn't think it was in.
You sat there and thought to yourself, you know, there's no way. And then he tapped. So a guy that was 8-0, you know, finally losing, it's a big deal for the organisation himself. And obviously beating a guy like Egor for Danny is huge. Yeah,
you made reference to some of those issues earlier with Egor. I take it you're referring to the early morning weigh-in, where he didn't make weight, and there was some word that perhaps he didn't want to make weight on purpose. What are your thoughts about that?
You know, I don't want to speculate too much on it, but what I think it shows is maybe the preparation for this fight. You know, as a professional, somebody who is in it, you know that 6 weeks out, you need to be doing this to your body in order to get to that weight. And if you're not at that stage, you know there's problems. And it's got a lot to do with professionalism, where he is in his life, what's happening. And I think that led up to him missing the weight. I wasn't happy about it. The organization was really, really angry about it because, you know, it's the first time a champion has ever missed weight in EFC.
Wow. It does really go to the fact that I thought he was very magnanimous in defeat. I mean, he was very gracious in defeat, and he is, without a doubt, the most talented wrestler you've got on the entire roster.
Well, so, besides JP Base.
Yeah, but he's an exciting fighter. It's his first loss. He's definitely going to come back strong. Talk about, as a replacement fight, everyone talks about, you know, Bisping against Rockhold, and now we've got Danny Henry and Egor Cabeza, where Henry took the fight, 16, 18 days out.
Short notice fight.
Cancelled a family do, came out here and wins the belt.
And phoned me literally 2 weeks before. There was a barrage of fights being changed throughout the lead up, maybe 2 months to this event. And Danny phoned me, WhatsApp called me maybe 2 weeks out and said, I think I'm off. My elbow's gone. He's got like a severe, I think it's like a form of tennis elbow.
Bursitis, wasn't it?
Yeah, bursitis. And he just said, Graeme, I think it's going to be off. But he stepped up to the plate and he handled this contendership, this title fight with professionalism, and you know, he came to show what he's about.
Yeah, in fact, I think every single fighter on the entire event came to fight. No, there wasn't a single guy the entire night who stepped backwards or went
Look, and you've got to understand something. Out of the 12 fights that we signed in December, and we'd finished the card by December. We came into the new year, cool, this is going to be an amazing year, 2017. 10 fights fell off. So we only had 2 fights that were the originally planned fights on this whole fight card.
That's incredible.
So taking that into account and the amount of guys that had to step up, you know, at short notice, and really some of them fought out of their weight divisions, and then to put on a show like that blew us all away. That's why I'm in another world as to what these guys put in. They are phenomenal athletes, and they are turning into some of the best athletes that Africa's going to see. my opinion.
I want to talk about some of those fighters going out their weight divisions in a second, but whilst we're talking about Danny Henry, is Boyd Allen the next fight you got for him?
That's what we want. I'm actually leaving the studio today and going to go chat to Boyd and try and lock that fight down.
At featherweight, it's the one that is the fight that makes sense.
He has a lot of problems with the featherweight division. I don't think he likes the featherweight division. I think he likes Boyd. I think he wants to be a lightweight. He's comfortable there. He's strong there. He's proved he can really excel at lightweight. But, you know, he's the guy. People want to fight Boyd. He was pound for pound the best featherweight we've ever seen. He was one of the longest reigning champions. He was the longest reigning champion in the division. And he's the guy that needs to step up to the plate now and maybe turn around for himself. Get that win against Danny, because we know that he's the only guy, Danny's the only guy in the organization that's beaten Boyd. Hopefully he can do it.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. So let's talk about fighters fighting out of their natural weight class. Is BK Maslinyani a future champion of the EFC?
Absolutely, at flyweight.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, fortunately for us, we have his stablemate and a really good contender and a current interim champion right in front of BK.
Yeah.
You know, there's always going to be the JP base factor for him. So I think BK wants to rack up as many wins as he can.
Yeah.
Up until the point when the door opens for him that he can take up the title. So that's why we said to him, okay, cool, we have a bantamweight fight for you, will you take it? He took it, and he took it against, let me tell you something, Biko, the guy he fought, one of the highest level jiu-jitsu fighters in the organization, an unbelievable amateur. So, I mean, he just blazed through everyone in amateurs and is a serious force to be reckoned with. And look what BK did at a lighter weight. So that kid's going far.
Yeah, it was absolutely superb and great attitude. Co-main event, Elvis Moyo against Mike Vermeulen.
What a fight.
That delivered exactly what you want from a heavyweight scrap.
Absolutely. You know, you've got two opposing sort of styles. You've got a guy who's very clinical in his boxing and a guy that's just a flat-out brawler.
Yeah.
And putting them against one another, we saw what we expected, but it was just so much. It was a beautiful fight to watch in many ways. And I know that describing heavyweight fights like that might sound strange, but if you watch the brawling style of Mike Vermeulen, and he was the only man to ever knock Elvis down.
Yeah, people's jaws
I
hit
mean,
the floor,
I
didn't
literally, my eyes almost popped out of my head. I said, is this actually happening? Am I watching this?
Yeah.
Got up, and Elvis just decided, hey, and Elvis we know he's not a finisher.
Yeah.
You know, he likes to go through the rounds, but he was like, hell no, I'm going to knock this guy out.
It was a
And
cracking
he stuck
knockout,
him.
wasn't it?
So it was just great. Great for both of the guys. I really enjoyed that fight. Really enjoyed it.
And I spoke at the press conference with Cairo Howarth afterwards. And I said, so, you know, Elvis Moyo or Wessel Mostet for a shot at Andrew Fanzel's heavyweight strap. And he said, well, we've seen Elvis against Andrew. It makes sense for Wessel Mostet to take Andrew Fanzel. When is that lined up for?
Okay, so the plan is this. EFC 61 in Sun City, I have already signed Andrew Fanzel for that fight. And it's a TBA. I said, Andy, listen, mate, we've got so many contenders vying for this opportunity. Let's see how the chips fall. Let's see who beats who. And then you and I can discuss your opponent. Because he's still going to have a good 6 to 8 week camp, even if we told him in the next month who his opponent is. We've already cleared one of those names off the roster, right? We know that Elvis Moyo's gone through, and we know that Wessel Mostat's gone through. I think that it's too early to give Mostat a title shot right now, maybe. Elvis, I don't want to do Elvis and Andrew straight away. You know, it would be a rubber match in effect.
Sure.
So I would rather wait and let either Wessel Mostat challenge him, or we've got Carl Etherington and Ruan Potts fighting. Potts has been to the UFC. He's a perfect guy to see what Etherington can deliver. And if Etherington can deliver, then Carl Etherington should go through and fight for the title against Andrew Fanzel.
And if Ruan Potts beats Carl Etherington, he'll get a shot at Andrew.
We'll have a look at that. We'll have a look at that.
I still think that the heavyweight division in the UFC at the moment is probably the best that the division has ever had.
Yeah.
There's so many permutations, some cracking
And
fighters.
there's some solid guys coming in on the preliminary bouts. We've got a guy from Durban coming in. We've got another guy from Cape Town. We have guys constantly coming in and testing themselves against our best.
So whilst we're talking about Wessel Mostet, what do you make of his fight with Tony Mustard?
I thought I'm getting used to his style of fighting now, which is cool. I understand the way he ticks. You know, he likes to use range, and then he doesn't like the in between. He likes to close the gap quickly, pin his guys up against the fence, and really just maul them if that is a fighting style.
Yeah.
That overhand right elbow was pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
So it showed a lot. I mean, he submitted people.
Yeah,
And he's knocked people out.
he put Straydon to sleep beautifully, didn't he?
Put him to sleep.
Yeah.
So do we have there's something special about this guy. This guy's going to go far. That's why rushing him into an Andrew van Zyl fight might not be the best idea now. You know, him racking up more wins and really looking good against good fighters.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say afterwards, after the fight, that technique of his head burrowing in the clinch up against the fence and then popping up with his elbows. He did it quite a few times until the decisive one.
Exactly, and you know I think he cut 8 kilos. So, and I mean, this is, his weight cut was 8 kilos. So prior to that, he was probably walking around in the 130 pluses. You know, the further ends of the 130s. And for him to cut that weight, when he's in the hexagon and he's got you up against the fence, you're literally in a position where 140 kilograms is on top of you.
Yeah. Never tempted to have a super heavyweight division in the EFC then, Graeme?
We had one fight. They call it the freak show division for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, it's great to watch. It's not athletic. The guys slug the hell out of each other. Yeah. I love watching it, but there's just not enough guys.
Tony Mustard, great guy. Very disappointed. He did come to fight. It would have been a little longer than his first EFC debut. Yeah. How difficult is it for you as a matchmaker to justify the expenditure of bringing international fighters? You keep Tomasz Kowalkowski again, for example. You know, is where you have homegrown fighters, a lot cheaper to bring out and put up, and yet you've got such a great guy like Tony Mustard. Yeah. What do you do?
So, I think we're also very good with our athletes in so much as we build up a good relationship with them. So I personally like Tony. I think he adds a lot to the organization, and we might see the best out of him in his next fight. Yeah. You know, I mean, if we put himself and Mike Vermeulen up against each other, that really lends itself to those two style of fighters. We need to look at 3 losses in a row and then really kind of sit down and go, guys, you know, what are we doing here? And be honest with the athlete. Where are you going with this? You know, are you going to be able to? So we'll give him another shot.
Yeah, I agree, because it doesn't make sense. You have 2 losses in the EFC, and before that, you have 7 first-round knockout wins.
No, he's a beast.
So we haven't seen the best of him yet.
And he went up against our best.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't fight bums. He's fought Andrew van Zyl, #1 heavyweight, the champion, and he's just fought the biggest prospect in the division.
Yeah, and the former IMF world champion.
Absolutely. So he's not fought bums.
Martin van Staden is a South African MMA god, Graeme Cartmell, and Christian Hali. What a turnaround! That's everything we love about this sport, isn't it? That first round turnaround was incredible.
Exactly.
Amazing.
You know, I'll give you a little bit of a prelude to this whole fight. When I signed it, I thought to myself, okay, I know they're going to do their homework, the Fight Fit guys, but I didn't want them to go through Christian's record and see, oh my goodness, he beat Artem Lobov. Oh my goodness, he took Roger Huerta to the 3rd round. Oh my goodness, he fought 1 championship. M1 Global. Last fight against an absolute Russian destroyer, you know, 8-1, one of the biggest prospects to come out of M1 Global. Martin is very much a mental fighter. You know, he's got the record, he's got the accolades, he's been there, he's invested in the sport, and he's a fighter. But if he's not in it 100%, we start to see some cracks form. So I was really happy that he came out there. He was 100% invested in the fight. I didn't really care if it was a win or loss for either of them. I just wanted a good fight.
Do you think that mental game with Martin van Staden has changed now completely at lightweight? I mean, this is his best weight class by far. This is a completely different fighter, isn't
he? I think his whole career, he outmuscled people, and that was his greatest attribute, and he knew it. He knew his biggest skill set was never the fact that he had a submission game or a wrestling game or he had technical boxing. He knew that when he got in there, he could use big overhand rights and he could throw guys around and really use his weight behind him. And I think he struggled in the welterweight division with that, especially in the submission game. Now, it's a different world for him. Martin is in his element at lightweight. He can use the full skill set and not worry about making strength his only skill that he's got. He can really hone his boxing, and we've seen it. The fact that he defended that choke for almost 4 minutes.
That's incredible.
It's testament to how much work that they are putting in this guy, in his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and his wrestling.
Yeah, because Christian Hali's body triangle was superb.
It's
and
fantastic.
It was in the whole round. And that the wrist control.
And his wrestling, the
Far
nuances of how that guy wrestled. People in the know will look at every aspect of how he crossed over, what he did, where his feet were, and go, oof, that guy's technical.
Yeah.
And for Martin to be able to negate that into the second, throw him on his back and just come down with some fierce ground and pound, knocking him out. I mean, it was instantaneous blood.
Yeah.
You know, he just bashed him to pieces.
So what Mayan said after the fight, he said in the last 10 seconds of that first round, he could feel that Christian was turning. He was like starting to give up. He was slightly gassed. Was it, I mean, and we know Christian Hali technically is also a superb fighter. Do you think it's a case of altitude again with these foreigners?
I said it to Christian before the fight. I said, you've got to understand, next time you must come out earlier. No, I'm fine. After the fight, I said, how do you feel now? He said, okay, it's very hard to explain the lack of oxygen in South Africa, in Johannesburg. Sorry, I keep on saying South Africa, but it's Johannesburg.
Yeah.
2,600 meters up, it's a different ball game. Compared to you at sea level, you get as much oxygen as you need. You're running at that level, you're doing your cardio at that level. You come up here, all of a sudden, you've got to go into the most insane fight of your life, adrenaline pumping. You're gasping for air. It makes a difference.
The first fight of the main card kind of echoed some of the concerns I had about one of the earlier fights. It was Gordon Woodman against Georgie Georgiev from GBH. And I relate it a bit to the Taylor Kennedy Pope Jambo fight, in the fact that very talented young guys, 21, 22 years old, taking a lot of shots. So Georgie took 3 rounds of punishment from Gordon, and it didn't seem to affect him at all. But at that age, do you want to be testing your chin that much? And the same thing with Taylor.
I didn't quite understand Georgie's game plan going into the fight. He seemed to just be charging forward with no defense. Maybe kind of goading, Rudman into his range.
Yeah, he was looking for an opening and for a counter, but it wasn't there.
But it wasn't there, and even when there were the opportunities, he didn't take them. So I didn't quite understand it. Look, the positive of it is we can now say that is one of the toughest human beings I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, okay? Incredible.
And if he can just change his game plan now, not get sucked into this, stand and brawl and two-hit trading, and actually use his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu.
In that third round, though, Graeme, Gordon was smacking him something rotten.
He was timing his overhand rights to such a degree that he was throwing them and arcing them over Georgie's head and hitting him almost on the back of the head.
That's not healthy, mate.
It was insane. But Gordon's tough, Georgie's tough. They came out of it. They're 100% cleared to fight. Then
so
no
Gordon's
injuries,
hands aren't broken.
No broken hands.
But what I liked about Gordon's striking was he was mixing up to the body. He had a cracking jab. We'd also talk about his hook and his overhand right, but he had a lovely jab and was moving ahead of body. It was going well.
He has accepted his reality. He knows what he is.
Yeah.
Gordon knows that that's what he is. He's a phenomenal stand and trade fighter.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, is kind of, that's the best way to be as an athlete. When you know your strengths and you stick to them, phenomenal. Then it's easy to match you. Then it's easy for you to get the best out of your fighting career. You're not trying to be a jiu-jitsu specialist when you know you don't have a ground game. You're trying to be, okay, cool, I'm going to keep this fight standing. And that just happens to be something that we all love, watching a guy like that trade for 3 rounds.
Yeah, and
I want to see it happen every fight. I love watching that guy fight.
And it was the first fight on your first live SABC event,
Exactly.
introducing MMA to a whole new audience. And that was your first fight that they get to see.
We had the 3-round bloodbath. Then it went on to 2 big heavyweights slugging it out. Then it went down to the turnaround from 2 talented fighters, Martin turning it around. Then Elvis Moyo knocking out Mike Vermeulen after Mike Vermeulen knocked Elvis down. And then the title fight, a guy who's undefeated, the most amazing fighter in the organization, gets beaten in the first round by submission and an absolute upset.
Yeah.
So it had it all.
It did.
It had it all.
It did. And it was a fantastic undercard. So let's talk about the debut of Taylor Kennedy. I mean, what a chin. And Pope Jambo is a tough guy to put away. That was a cracking fight.
I was walking around the hexagon looking at him, thinking, sure, maybe I've matched this fight incorrectly. This kid's gone down twice.
Yeah.
I hope he's okay. And he just seemed to kind of get his feet and, okay, I'm in a fight now and this is cool. And then I was actually videoing the end of the fight, not knowing that it would be the end, obviously, and I just saw him turn on the heat, and he was like, no,
wow.
I can win this.
Yeah.
Body kicks, 2 body kicks, overhand right, and then he just landed the one in Pope. Face planted, and he just finished him off, and I thought, okay, this guy is legit. And it's so beautiful finding new talent like that, Pope trains with CIT all day. He's a high-level guy. He's a tough fighter. And Kennedy comes in there and disposes of him. I'm really impressed with him.
Yeah, I just do worry about career longevity for these youngsters who go in and keep testing their chins. But that's
Do you know what? Do you know what? The fight itself, people forget. They're getting far harder sparring in their training camps than they are in that fight.
Fair enough. Yeah, I know.
You know, and that fight lasts very short.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's why we always get kind of hiding from a lot of the trainers and corners and fighters when a fight is stopped too early, you know. Like Elvis Moyo getting knocked out by Kowalski. You know, it could have gone on a little bit more. But the referee goes, safety, like how much punishment do we need to decide that this guy's okay, or is he going to come back? And I think that most of the guys, you know, if they want a longer career, like you say, need to not test themselves, like Leon may not. He stuck his chin out there for his whole career, you know, come hit this thing.
No, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I understand. I was happy that Devon Cronje got the win after such a glittering amateur career, but something was missing from Yusuf Hassan on Saturday. Would you agree with that? He didn't seem to be on point.
Yeah, Yusuf, the fight against Chart Henning, he seemed to be living in this, I've made it to EFC moment, my brothers are here, you know, let's do this, and put on a war. And when he walked out backstage after the Henning fight last year, I said, that is the fight. It isn't going to get harder than that. You've done the hardest fight you're ever going to do in the organization. Now it's clean sailing for you. You just show up, train, show up, and you'll put on great fights, and you'll start racking up the wins. And I don't know what happened to him on Saturday at 57. Even I did a quick interview with him backstage. I was videoing him and just talking to him. He didn't seem ticked over.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like sometimes the fight fit thing, fighting someone from their camp, it kind of lends the guy to kind of worry a little bit more about it instead of just going, whatever, let's get in there, let's scrap it up. I've done my work, let's fight. So I wish he'd come to party. I wish he'd come to fight because he's a great. I think we're going to see better from him.
Yeah, I agree. So Graeme, let's throw ahead to EFC 58 in Cape Town on April the 8th at Grand West, which I can't wait for. Dave Mazzani against Dom Madge. Cracking main event. Really look forward to that fight. But you haven't announced the co-main event, have you? Because that's missing on the fight card. What is it? What have you got planned?
I was actually waiting for an international opponent to stick in there. We've had a couple of opportunities, and the guy that I'd like Francois to fight is a guy named Dean Garnett. He's fighting at ACB this coming weekend.
Oh, wow.
So depending on injury and if he's ready to go, that's who Francois Groenewold will be fighting. Because we need to build up another contender for DeMart Penna. Something we were discussing earlier that I think we need to hit on is that DeMart needs a credible opponent. And if Francois managed to beat Dean Garnett, wow, he's the guy. And if Dean comes through and blazes a trail there, cool, we're ready for him to fight. The more international opponents DeMart gets, the better he's going to get because he'll rise to the occasion.
Why is DeMart still fighting in the EFC? Not that I'm not happy to see him in the EFC. I get to see him fight. He's a fantastic athlete. Why has he not been snapped up by, say, the UFC, for example? What's the reason?
There's been a couple of reasons why. I think that the easy answer is that he's in a division that is not sought after. The bantamweight division is not the most exciting division for the promotions overseas to want guys to come and fight for them. You know, they look at it, they go, we've got major champions here, we're flooded with bantamweights. Why bring somebody from Africa here? They don't have any broadcast in this country, so it's not exactly like people are going to be watching the fight. The fighters aren't going to sell tickets over there because nobody knows who they are. So there's many variables to it. It's not that he's not good enough. I think it's just more of a why do it type stuff for them. The UFC, I know in particular, the reason they took Zulu is because they had a plan that they wanted somebody for Demetrius Johnson. You know, nobody could beat him in the US. Everybody they put up against him got smoked. So they took all the champions from around the promotions around the world and put him in there. You know, Gareth McClellan was a different story. He's a middleweight. Middleweight to heavy, they are salivating for. They need those guys in the divisions. But the lower weight classes, I mean, and Conor McGregor's destroyed that whole dream for a lot of guys because who else is focusing on developing other talent other than just worrying about when Conor's going to fight? That's kind of where it is. So I'd love him to go. It'll be the day that he says to me, Gray, I've got a contract overseas and it's a great one and it's worth the time, money and effort and it's paying me more than what EFC pays him because we pay him quite a chunk. Tear up his contract and go, great, buddy.
Yeah,
Go live your dream.
he so deserves it.
Another
Really
thing
does.
to consider is visas.
Yeah. Also on EFC 58 in Cape Town, you've got Sean de Lange versus Dino Bagatine. Surely that is going to be the fight of the year. And that's a prelim. It's a great card, isn't it?
Yeah, I cannot believe that that's on the preliminary part.
Unbelievable.
But it just means that more people are going to get into the stadium and watch it.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
See, what's going to happen with the Women's Championship? You've got a flyweight and a strawweight division. When's there going to be a women's champion in the EFC?
We are doing that fight in June, Sabaya Casino. That's going to be the female flyweight title between Mandalino and Jacqueline Trussier.
Wow.
Trussier just beat Shana. Shana was the best in the division. She deserves a shot against Lena, who we know is chewing at the bit to get her name forward there. It's going to be really cool. And then strawweight, we only have one strawweight. We have two. And they've just fought each other.
Yeah.
So I need to develop that division. It's very difficult. I had a long chat to Danella. She was like, when am I fighting for the title? I said, it's very difficult for us to just kind of spit out contenders.
Yeah.
But what I will start doing is looking for an international contender for her to face off against. That could possibly be the next thing, is her fighting a title at strawweight against an international. We haven't decided, but that might be an option.
Yeah, it was a great victory for Danella. But in that fight particularly, I have a lot of fans often asking me, when's Irene Cabeza Rivera
She's cool.
back?
She's cool. Maybe we should get the two most beautiful women in EFC to fight, Zita Vayu and Irene Rivera.
Yeah, so also fantastic fighters and great women. When is champion Dalcher and Chad Hanekom happening? We talk about this quite often. What's going on?
Dalcher's agreed to the fight. July is when it's happening. Chad Hanekom just got back from the States. He's ready to fight. We're going to do that in July.
So it's on?
That's on Sun City, July. We're going to do that fight.
For the light heavyweight
The
championship?
light heavyweight title fight.
That's a cracking fight. Very quickly, last question, Graeme. When is Yannick Bahati fighting next, and who's he facing?
He's fighting, we're hoping he'll fight Norman. We are trying to work things out with Norman. There's a lot of stuff to digest and work through with him. So I'm really hoping that it's Norman. If it's not Norman, there's other options. You know, we could take him up to fight the winner of champion Dalcher and Chad Hanekom.
Yeah.
We could get Dricus du Plessis in to go up a weight class to middleweight.
Yeah.
Fight there.
I saw a social post from Dricus when he had 2 belts over his shoulders.
He wants it. He wants it. And who doesn't want to see Dricus versus Bahati?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to see that fight? That fight will be explosive. They hate each other already. And there's a lot of bad blood with the Michiel situation.
Yeah.
You know, Yannick said a lot of things that have kind of sat very badly with the CRT crowd, and they're not happy.
What is the update on the Michiel Opperman situation? Do
We're
you know?
waiting for the association to make every athlete, I believe, is innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
Though tests come back and forth, they need to justify what's happened in their careers that have led up to this, why it's happened. I think the South African Institute for Drug-Free Sport still need to have their hearing, and at that hearing, then we can determine exactly what's happening with him.
Is there a B sample?
But so I don't think that he has opted to do a B sample. It's not for not wanting to do it, but I think, got to understand, it's like a 30,000 Rand cost to send those samples overseas, and that is a cost to the athlete if it comes back positive.
Yeah.
And it's the same sample. So it's not exactly, if it came back once already, it's doubtful that they've made the mistake, that SAIDS has made the mistake. It's more than likely that, well, that is in his blood, or that is in his system. Let's justify it or work it out why.
Yeah, sure. Fantastic, Graeme. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
What a great event it was, and I can't wait for Cape Town. April the 8th, Grand West.
Yeah, let's be there. It's going to
Cheers,
be great.
buddy.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
mate. Well, that's your lot for this week's episode of The Clinch. Don't forget, you can get hold of us through all the usual social media accounts. If there's anything whatsoever that you want to share or you want to see, please get hold of us. Join me next week for more insight, features and interviews. Thanks for watching. Be good.